Great to be here again. Thanks so much for spending the time. You've all heard me talk about the importance of genuinely caring and how to motivate people. And it's funny, we started receiving all these emails and calls from people, from leaders saying, of course I care. Of course I genuinely care. What is there a better way to show it? Is there a system? Is there a process? Is there a better way in which I could be the best leader I possibly can be? And they're asking questions like, is there a way to tie both leadership and motivation together? And essentially, how do I become a motivational coach that matters? So when I was at American Express, we used to have our old general sales manager is a guy named Doug Lennox. Doug Lennox was one of the greatest leaders in the history of mankind, the type of guy you want to run through a wall from. He's presently the CEO of an organization called Think to Perform. And what he basically taught us is this process called WDYWFY, WDYWFY. WDYWFY stands for what do you want for yourself? And I'm going to actually talk to you a little bit today about the process that we went through. But I want you to imagine this. Imagine if I work for you, or I was in your classroom, or I was on your team. And basically you as a leader sat down with me a minimum of twice a year to talk about my goals, both personally and professionally. So let's say they were on January 1st and on July 1st, we actually had penciled in time for us to review what was important to me. And the first thing we would do on January 1st is we'd have this conversation called WDYWFY, which again stands for what do you want for yourself? And basically the question the leader would ask is, tell me about what your goals are this year. So what's important to you personally? What's important to you professionally? And what's important to you from a personal development standpoint? And I'll give you examples of all those in a minute. But let's say that my goal was I wanted to grow my business by 20% this year. And then number two is I used to coach soccer and I want to be able to make practice every Wednesday and Thursday nights. So basically the conversation Doug would have with me is, okay, the first thing you have to do is you have to have a goal. And that goal has to pass this thing called the acid test. In other words, can I afford it time-wise, mentally, from an effort perspective? Am I sacrificing anything? But it's important to have a written down goal. The second thing is you have to have a plan. So when you have a plan, there are certain key activities, there are things that I have to do by a certain date. And that was their time deadline. And if I do them, I'm much more apt to hit my goal. Number three is obviously implement the plan. I actually have to do the work. And in doing so, I need some help. I need some support. Call me once a week, ask me about it, make sure I continue to do this. The next is controlling direction. I need to keep score. So if my goal is to grow by 20% per year, I want to make sure that every quarter I'm at least 5% growth, or I'm tracking to hit that 20%. If I want to be at 2 soccer practices a week, I need to make sure that I'm actually going twice a week. And then finally is this thing called throwing off discouragement. We all have competing emotions, especially in the face of adversity. When things are going great, you don't want to get too high, and things are going bad, you don't want to get too low. You want to have an even keel. So the ability to cope on a consistent basis is important to reach your goals. So I want to give you a great personal example that happened to me with my old boss. So when I moved from Boston to Washington, D.C. to take over the American Express region here, it was really interesting. We were new to the area, my wife and I. We didn't know a soul. My oldest daughter, Amanda, was literally 6 months old. I'm like, what do we do? And so I'm a workaholic back in the day. So I would start my day at 7 o'clock. I'd work till 11 o'clock every night. And I would just do whatever I possibly could to be successful. I was all about hustle 101. So my boss came to me one time and we did this WDYWFY process, and he literally said to me, he said, what are your goals? And all I was talking about was business goals. He said, no. There are personal goals that you have. And I said, well, I'd like to be a great dad, and I love to be a great husband. I'd like to be kind of good to myself as well at some point in time. So he instituted this thing called the date night. And it was a mandatory date night. And what basically said was every Wednesday at 4 o'clock, I had to leave the office and I had to go home and spend time with my family. And I heard it and I understood it. I didn't necessarily want to do it because I was all about growing the organization. Shame on me for not knowing better. So it was interesting. The first couple of Wednesdays that went by, of course, I missed the deadline because something came up. So finally what he did, and he kept asking me about it during our weekly one-on-one. So finally he called my assistant, Susan. He said, Susan, you cannot book anything after 3:30 on Wednesdays. And oh, by the way, if DiGiammarino doesn't leave the office by 4:00, you are physically to go in there, drag him out, walk in his car and say, I'll see you tomorrow. She actually did that multiple times. So it was really funny is that for me, because of this, I realized I could get just as much done, if not more, not working all those crazy hours. And I could, quote unquote, have it all. I could have a great family life. I could be a great dad. I could be a great husband. I could even be better to myself, as well as running the business. And I got to tell you, my boss at the time, his name was Bob Harden. And what he did made a dramatic difference on my life, both personally and professionally. And he's, quite frankly, someone I'll just never forget. And how cool would it be for you as a leader to never be forgotten by the people you lead? Hope this helps, and we'll talk to you soon.